If you want an exciting film about a fascinating character that I've never heard of, and I think a lot of people haven't, then you should check out Chevalier. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch Your Past. Today I'm here to talk to you about Chevalier, which comes to theaters on April 21st, 2023. It's a fascinating story about a little-known French figure named Joseph Bologne, who, against all odds, kind of rose to prominence in France pre-revolution, and just has a fascinating life story, an interesting kind of cultural dichotomy, and just also makes for a great and entertaining film. So, as you can tell, my hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. Look, it's an interesting story, and it has kind of an exciting take on this historical figure. The film feels both classic and contemporary. I love how it constantly straddles this line to make the film kind of feel like a film in the past, but give you some modern sensibilities as well. And it also just has a great music, and the story is just really interesting. So I think you should check it out when it comes to theaters. So I'm gonna tell you a little more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like. I might briefly go into the ending, but if I do, it'll be very quick. And I will let you know when that happens. So in Chevalier, you have the story of Joseph Bologne, who was the Chevalier de Saint-Georges in France. He was like a close confidant to the Queen Marie Antoinette. He was a violin virtuoso. He was a fencer. He was just this larger than life person that kind of came from, I don't know, not nowhere. His father was a plantation owner in America. Uh, Joseph Bologne was the illegitimate son of his father and a slave. And his father sent him to France because he realized that Joseph had some talent and wanted him to learn and nurture it. And so he grew up in France, essentially adopted French society, rose through the ranks of French society, and did some amazing, amazing things. But his life was not perfect. His life had some turmoil. His life had some, self um, reflection and some inner kind of emotion, and that is all shown on screen. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, and this of course makes sense for a movie about a violin virtuoso, an opera composer. The music is fantastic. It is definitely a classical score, but it really helps to kind of emphasize the story. Like first, just kind of some of the things that he was able to do with the violin and do, some of the music that he was able to create were awe-inspiring, and the fact that, like, the film has a nice classical soundtrack throughout really helps to set the stage, and especially towards the end when you start hearing some of the works that he composed, they are really awe-inspiring, especially when they're weaved into the overall movie. The second thing I loved are, I'll call it the modern updates. This film did have kind of this dichotomy of like a classical feel with the setting and the subject matter, but it did have some kind of modern updates, modern aspects to it. Like some of the characters seem to kind of speak their mind and have more contemporary takes on society, not like out of line, but just takes that felt a little fresher than I expected from a movie about 18th century France. Maybe that's because the themes are still relevant, sadly, but I don't know. The film felt like it had something to say to our modern society as well. And there are some interesting things. I talked to the screenwriter Stephanie Robinson, and one of my favorite scenes at the very start where Joseph gets into essentially like the classical equivalent of a rap battle, was really, really fun, really interesting, and did kind of have that more modern feel. It felt like something that was a little more contemporary. And it was added for the movie, but I do think that it is a testament to his life that you wouldn't tell. Like it feels like something he could have done, and it kind of fits right into the structure, so it does help to tell his story. The third thing I loved is the cast. Like this is a fantastic cast, specifically Kelvin Harrison Jr. and Samara Weaving. I love them both. I really, really like anything that they're in, and the fact that they're both in this movie was wonderful. And the film also has Minnie Driver. It has just an overall great cast to tell this amazing story. And the last thing I loved is the ending. It is a film that kind of builds towards this large end, this kind of like inner turmoil, and the end is so well done. It is so dramatic. Like I was holding my breath for parts of it, and just kind of it fit with the theme, it fit with all the things that we have learned, and it had some amazing music. So I love the ending of this movie, and it's always a good sign when a movie ends strong. Things I didn't love as much, there were a couple, like, I don't know, moments of stalling during the film as he's going through some, I don't know, inner turmoil and growth. They weren't a big deal, but there were definitely some spots where the film kind of slowed down. It has kind of a really exciting opening and an exciting ending, and kind of has maybe a little bit of a valley in the middle. But again, that's not that big of a deal because the film itself is very good. So Going to the ending, and as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in this. I mean, this is a historical figure, so the spoilers aren't going to be that big of a deal. But I just kind of want to talk about the last scene, which I absolutely love. So in the film, you have Joseph Bologne, who is he is trying to kind of rise further and further in French society. He already has a pretty esteemed position. His title is the Chevalier de Saint-Georges. He wants to run the Paris Opera House. That is kind of like, I guess, the most prestigious musical job you can have. He is in a competition with a German composer, and the queen decides that she is going to have them both write an opera, and they will decide who gets to kind of run the Paris Opera House by whose opera is better. So Joseph Bologne starts writing his opera, and in doing that, he incorporates someone he had met recently who seems to be fascinated with this person, Marie-Josephine, who is married to some French noble, the Marquis de something or other, who is obviously very protective of her because she's his wife, but he also seems to be kind of a jerk and abusive. So Joseph is drawn to her. He kind of like uses her for the opera, and because of that, they have a relationship. That leads to some societal turmoil, some turmoil for his own life, but eventually Marie ends up leaving him, going back with her husband. You don't really know why, other than it seems like she's very afraid. And you find out later that she was very afraid, both for herself and for Joseph. She thought Joseph would be killed. But when he spends time with Marie, he goes to like some revolutionary meetings, some revolutionary thought, which he'd already done. He had done this before, but she kind of helps to further that conversation when she speaks about women's rights and things like that. And so he gets deeper into this revolutionary whole, and in the backdrop of this whole story, you have the French Revolution bubbling up, and Joseph is kind of part of this. He's one of the revolutionaries, but he has this kind of strange dual role because he's also a close confidant with the Queen, who is part of the monarchy, which the French Revolution was trying to kind of overthrow. But he has his own kind of societal doubts. He is like even though he is such an accomplished person, he still kind of is viewed a little bit as an outsider at times because of his skin color, because of where he came from. And so he also kind of does not appreciate the system and the kind of aristocracy. And to pile it all on, Joseph and Marie had an illegitimate child, and the Marquis ends up killing that child. So he is kind of put in place by the Queen. He is also a like soldier for the Queen. So that doesn't help his love of the kind of like the aristocracy and the system in general. So eventually Joseph puts on a concert playing one of his new works, and the proceeds are going to go to help the revolution and also to kind of like help the people. Now, as you can imagine, the Queen doesn't like this because he is he has a title, he is part of the aristocracy, or at least he's part of like the noble class, and she gave that to him. So the fact that he is now kind of like working against her doesn't sit right with her. So she tells him to stop, to not do it. And if he does, then he'll be stripped of his title. Joseph at this point, I think, is kind of all in on the revolution. And so he ends up doing the concert. And during the concert, which they play this amazing, really powerful song, which I love. I love the song. It's kind of this tense moment because as they're playing this concert, guards show up. And the guards, led by the Marquis who, hates him, storm in and like try to arrest him. And Joseph, doesn't fight back. He gets down, he puts down his violin, walks down to the Marquis, who has a gun pointed at him, and just like stands right in front of him. But during this time, kind of because of everything bubbling over, because of the unrest that is happening, the crowd starts yelling at the soldiers, and they don't like fight them, but they kind of get in their way and tell them to stop. And this pressure leads the Marquis to put down his gun. And then Joseph goes back up and continues playing the song, and like the Marquis kind of like walks out, and Marie Antoinette sees this and kind of realizes that her power is starting to slip. And during all this backdrop, you have the revolution starting. And so I thought it was just a really great scene. It was a really kind of tense moment, and the music was fantastic. So you do find out that Joseph did have a part to play in the French Revolution. He actually led the first all-black battalion or all-black regiment in the war. He, fought there and had like a very accomplished life on top of what he'd already done. So that is Chevalier. Like I said, it's coming to theaters on April 21st, 2023. It is a very good movie. It is a fascinating story about a very interesting person, and I definitely think you should check it out. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.